Hey everyone, it's Jensen here again. Going to recap some of what's been going on in the last week of college football. Give my first top 10. Again, I don't think there should be any rankings at all before October, probably before you even play. Like maybe 1 week into October, I think that's when you finally can get a feel of where teams actually are. They played 4 or 5 games, and you're moving in a direction where you can start evaluating teams and not just think, oh, I think that team is good, I think this team is good. And of course, there's always going to be bias in the polls. Kentucky rose up into the top 10 because they beat Florida, which is a okay team in the SEC, but nothing great. But they were supposedly very good because they beat a Florida team. So take that for what it's worth. I don't think there should be any rankings, and then it's easier to move the teams into their correct positions. There's some teams that haven't got a crack in the top 25 yet. Some just barely did. Kansas is finally in the top 25. I don't know if they'll stay in the top 25, but as of right now, I think they deserve that ranking. There's some teams that I don't think. I like Washington State. They should be in the top 25, but they're not, and that's because people don't care about West Coast football much. I guarantee that most people have not seen any bit of any Washington State game. So, I mean, that's just how it is. Anyways, I'll go down my list of the top 10 right now. Again, I do my rankings on where I think they deserve to be, not necessarily the best teams, but the most deserving teams. I will throw in some commentary on how good I think they are as well. So at 10, I've got Penn State. They're undefeated. They've gone to a couple tough places. I think going to Purdue on the first week was good. They went to Auburn, and they did what was you're supposed to do to a bad team, which Auburn is a bad team, and they blew them out. So I do give Penn State some credit. They've had some tough road wins, and so I have them as 10. Ole Miss, I have as 9. I thought surviving against Kentucky there, pretty lucky with the penalty and whatnot to keep Kentucky out of the end zone there. But I have Ole Miss as 9. I think, again, all these top 10 teams, well, not all, up at the top you get the cream, but a lot of these teams, that it could be very fluid, this ranking. That's not saying where I think they'll end up, just where they deserve to be right now. So Ole Miss, I think they played some tough teams. The winning against Pitt, I think, was impressive. So then we've got number 8 as Tennessee. Tennessee's offense is looking good. Tennessee is the one that played Pitt, unless I just going backwards. Anyways, Tennessee has some solid wins. They beat Florida, held on, but they were by far the better team in that game. I'm impressed. I want to see how they do against the really tough teams. Their defense looks improved from last season, and their offense is very dangerous. They're a team that could, on a good day, outscore someone. So then we've got number 6, Michigan. Why I have Michigan at 6, or no, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Number 7, I have USC. USC, their offense is great. They bounced back against Arizona State, and I'll dig into this a little bit more, but there's some flaws and some concerns for USC, which is why I only have them as 7. Even though I do think they beat some pretty good teams. Oregon State, I still think, is a good team, even though they got blown out against Utah. But you look in that game against Utah, they actually were able to move the ball. They turned the ball over, which led directly to Utah points, which is why that score got out of hand. you take those turnovers away, and granted, you don't do that in a game. I realize that, but Oregon State is actually a very competitive team. And hopefully their quarterback isn't hurt too badly. I haven't seen the update on him. He left in the second quarter, so that also probably had an effect on the game as well. Anyways, USC, a flawed undefeated team, but they have some very good things going for them. So I have them as 7. Number 6, I have Michigan. Michigan's played no one. Their out of conference schedule is a joke. They have looked pretty good playing nobody, but we won't know until they actually start playing people, which they really don't have very many on their schedule. Michigan has a very weak schedule, which again is something, and a side tangent here on these conferences. They're getting so big that even if you have lots of real tough schools, it's sort of diluted down. So it's not like you're playing an intense schedule every week. I mean, yes, there are some real tough teams in the Big Ten. There's also a lot of Northwesterns and Marylands and Rutgers and these sort of teams that are just not Indiana. And so it dilutes it down a lot. The SEC has a lot. Granted, Georgia barely scraped by Missouri, and I'll get to Georgia, but that's a part of it. I mean, has Georgia really played a tough schedule? Well, they played Oregon, which was very impressive, but other than that, no, not really. South Carolina's not good. I mean, anyways. So Michigan played nobody. Not all that impressed with them, but they are undefeated. They are a playoff team from last year. Then we've got number 5, Oklahoma State. I'm impressed with Oklahoma State. I think they're solid on both sides. I think their defense, like last year, has improved. It's not the same Oklahoma defense that you normally think of when we're thinking of Oklahoma State. So I think that's good for them. And I mean, they beat Baylor. They've played a pretty decent schedule already. So I like Oklahoma State at 5. I mean, you could make a case in the top 4 too for Oklahoma State. Right now, I have number 4 as Clemson. I think they did a great job beating Wake Forest and NC State. I think those are 2 good teams that they've knocked off. I think DJ, not even trying his last name, is playing a lot better at quarterback. And their defense is great. I mean, their defense has never been bad. And really, the rest of the way, I mean, Clemson doesn't play too many more people that will put up much of a challenge. So Clemson has a very, very sort of easy way into the college football playoff. Number 3, I have Ohio State. Ohio State, you could say they've been the most impressive team. They've blown out pretty much everyone other than Notre Dame in week 1. But even in that week 1 game, I mean, it was still 11 points. Granted, Notre Dame doesn't look great or world beating or anything, but they've crushed everyone else. So they look more physical. They look like a complete football team. They look very impressive. I don't see who's going to knock them off in the Big Ten. But you never know, though. Again, they have a couple hard games. Of course, they have Michigan and they have Penn State. So there are some obstacles out there, but we'll see. Number 2, I have Alabama. Alabama they survived against Texas. They really comfortably won against Arkansas, even with Bryce Young going out. Hopefully Bryce Young gets back. Hopefully his shoulder injury isn't anything serious. But Alabama is a complete football team. I mean, it's what you expect with Nick Saban. He's the best coach there ever in college football, and his team is ready. And number 1, I still have as Georgia. They're the defending national champions. Their defense is not last year's defense, but they are pretty solid when they need to be. They've scraped by two two teams in 2 weeks in a row now. I think I still am unsure with Stetson Bennett as quarterback. I mean, I don't think he's the greatest, but they have so much talent everywhere else that it's okay. I mean, they're a solid team and returning champions, so you can't take that away. So really quick before I get into looking back, and then I'll make another video later this week for moving forward this next weekend. But last week with USC, it was good to see Caleb Williams connect on passes. He's accurate again. The man is crazy, cannot be sacked almost. How he escaped some of those is incredible. Which brings me to a concerning point, is that USC's offensive line was not good at all. And so there is very worrying things. And on defense, the linebackers just cannot match up against running backs and tight ends. And so I'm very concerned. And yet in the second half, the defense turned it all around. They made adjustments. They were bringing more pressure, it seemed like, a little bit more intensity, and Arizona State was just stopped. So, I mean, they're going to have to get that going from the beginning of games, though, especially with Washington State coming to town this weekend, which we'll preview next. So I'm still concerned. It was good to see Caleb Williams bounce back. Hopefully, again, what will be more telling with him is what happens at Utah. Then we can know, is he getting rattled on the road? Because there were still concerning things like running the play clock all the way down, trying to get the play in and changing it at the line of scrimmage. And so we'll see what happens when they go on the road again. But this week against Washington State is going to be very tough. And they've got to get better on the offensive line. It's just not been good there. If Caleb Williams wasn't an escape artist, these games might be turning out differently. And the defense has got to start games like they do coming out of the half. So those things we need to look and see improvements on. Again, it's a brand new USC team. Hopefully we see that improvement week in and week out. Anyways, that's my thoughts. We'll preview the games next. So have it so good. Bye now.